This is Mr. Reed, and this is Chapter 1 in your Campbell biology book. And what we're talking about here is basically what is biology, the study of life. What does all that mean? So we're going to go through this. So first off, if you look at this picture, there's all kinds of different properties of life, and you can kind of see how the patterns in the sunflower, or the adoption or the raising of the monkeys over here, the cooling off and maintaining that homeostasis of the rabbit is all that you see in life all the time. So just remember that all those are parts of life. So what is living things? Well, living things are made of cells. They reproduce, they develop, they maintain this homeostasis, and they have a metabolism to do that. And then there's also response to stimuli. That response to stimuli, that's that behavior, that's the how and the why. Let me go back a slide. And this response to stimuli, this homeostasis is actually what I'll cover real quick. Remember, and remember, homeostasis just means to stay, or to stay the same. Homeo means the same, like Homo sapien. Homogeneous. Genes are all basically the same genes. Homogeneous solution is a solution like Kool-Aid. You can't see the different parts. And stasis just means to stay the same. Organization of living things. Remember, all things are made up of cells. All living things are made up of cells. Even before that, there's the atom and the molecule. And then the cells then form tissues to organs, organs to organisms, populations, communities, and then ecosystems. And so a population is one single organism. So again, this population right here, this is actually one organism. Whereas a community is a group of different organisms, and then the ecosystem is both the biotic and abiotic factors. My pen's not working right now. So yeah, it's both the biotic and the abiotic factors. That means the living being bio right here, and then the A meaning not living. So all those in the community that are living organisms, as well as those that are non-living. And then it starts off over here with the atom, the molecules, and compounds. But we're looking primarily at biology. This is the side we're going to look at over here: the cells, the tissues, the organs, and down on from there. Now, there's two ways to look at, research and studying. You can look at both what's called a holism and then the reductionism. So a holism looks at the entire unit. So it looks at basically where do we come from as a whole. And each produce is not productive alone, so you have to work together. Reductionism looks at individual pieces, and that's actually what a lot of science is looking at now, because that's why we're looking at the atoms and those kind of things to see what's made us up. Remember, there's two different types of cells: prokaryotic and eukaryotic. These are things that you should have learned in the previous biology class. Robert Hooke was one of the first people to name it, call it a cell. Anton von Leeuwenhoek was the first to see cells in pond water. Always cool to look at. And then Schlitten and Schwann, and if you have Dr. Cox, that's Schwann-Schwells. And they're the ones that determine this cell theory, where basically all living items are made of cells. And two things: all are made of cells, and then all cells come from other cells. So you can't just automatically make life. It has to come from some other cell. Now, this is what Watson and Crick busted into the Eagle pub when they discovered DNA. So there's this DNA. And so DNA, well, it was discovered, the structure of DNA was discovered by Watson and Crick in 1954. Obviously, it was actually found out by Rosalind Franklin, but she never gets the clue for it. It's made up of 4 bases, a nucleotide. And so if you look at this picture up here, here is your standard DNA double helix. So these, I'm pretty sure the blue guys right here Those are your four bases, your four base pairs, your A's, G's, T's, and C's. And this nucleotide is actually a base, a sugar, and a phosphate backbone. So all those three make up the nucleotide. One of the main functions, or one of the main things we look at, especially in biology, and the four big main ideas, is structure and function. So how does the structure allow for function? So I'm going to give you the structure, but you have to determine the function. So like when birds are in flight, they have hollow bones. Why is that? Well, if you have a lighter skeleton, then you're able to fly easier. Why is there so many folds in the mitochondria? That's what this is down here on the right. This blue right here is all the folds. Well, why is that? Well, because that way there's able to allow for more of the hydrogen pump, which we'll talk about later. Now, the nutrient cycles, you do need to know these three different kinds. Go back. The water cycle, the oxygen, and the nitrogen cycle. And remember, basically the key idea here is that the change from one type of water to the next type of water is always changing. It's a constant amount of change. Same with nitrogen as well as the carbon cycle. Now, how do we do science? Well, we look at taxonomy. We look at the study of classifying things. And so Carl Linnaeus was the first one to classify items. And so if you look over here, we have the classification within the 6 kingdoms, which is actually about to change, which is kind of cool. And they have levels of classification. So let's look back here on this picture. So if we want to classify this wolf is in the kingdom Animalia. He has a backbone, so he's in phylum Chordata. He produces, she produces milk for her young, has hair, those kind of qualifications. It's a carnivora within the Canidae family, so within the dog family. Genus Canis, and then Canis lupus. So what that means is that anything within this genus is most likely fairly related. So you have Canis lupus, Canis domesticus, and that's the difference between a wolf and a dog. And that's why you can actually interbreed those, because they are so close. Now, let's go to evolution. Now, in evolution, we use mostly one definition in biology, which is basically just the idea that evolution is just a change over time. And that's all it is. Evolution is just a change over time. And we have to remember that evolution doesn't go with this just one organism, but it has to be a change over time with a large species. So this is Charles Darwin and his daughter. He wrote The Origin of Species, and he's known as the natural selection or father of evolution. And so basically, there was a descent with modification, which is evolution. And so we arose from other succession of ancestors, and the mechanism of evolution is through natural selection. That's what this picture is looking like over here when you look at the bird. And obviously those that are white, these guys right here, are going to be easier picked off. So the bird eats those off. There's more survivors that are gray, and so now we have mostly all gray evolved bugs. So that's that natural selection idea. Okay. So again, he focused on those ideas of natural selection and then descent with modification. That's actually where the evolution idea came from. So he looked at these finches, and basically the idea with the finches was that you could go to different parts of the island. This finch right here, the big one is the big one with the big beak. It's a large ground finch, and you could tell that there's a difference between what that finch would eat as well as this warbler finch would eat, based on mostly on the beak, maybe also on their feet, because obviously this larger beak would do more larger ground nuts, whereas the warbler finch would be more into the insect catching, like pinchers, those kind of things. So scientific process. We do both inductive reasoning as well as deductive reasoning. Basically, either are we going to find the reasoning based on going into the answer, or do we have an answer that we want to deduct from that answer, kind of like what House does. There's a scientific method which you have all probably learned from the beginning of time, and then you always have to have your control group. Remember, there's two different types of variables, both the independent and the dependent. Remember, the independent is what's being manipulated, and the dependent is what's responding to that manipulation. The experimental group is what is actually the one that's being tested by the independent variable. The control group does not have that testing. And then remember, things are not just a theory. A theory is actually above a law in the hierarchy. You can hypothesize all day long. A law is actually shown through several testings to be basically proven, and then finally a theory has once a hypothesis has been tested and it's been proven several times, then the theory occurs. So most of the time you always think laws above theory, but really theory is the true full definition that we have yet to be able to disprove. So remember, I always talk about you need to make sure that you've got your 5 traits, or your if-then hypothesis. So again, if the independent variable occurs, then the dependent variable will change because of it. So make sure that you always choose the possible causes, not the actual results. Reflect from past experiences. It's a good way to kind of set your hypothesis up. It's always good to have multiple hypotheses. That allows for extra experimentation and truly get to the best idea. Remember, it always needs to be testable, and then always work to eliminate. And you're not always going to make sure that your hypothesis could be wrong, but it's okay. So here's the 10 basic themes of science. These are the 10 things we're going to make sure we cover, 10 different things of science. So we're going to make sure we cover all those ideas within life. So just take a look at this, and then if you have any questions, make sure you email me or talk to me in class. Thanks.